All right, good morning, everybody. This is James Morris, and I have Frank Sundrum calling me. I don't have no idea where he's calling from, but he's been in the process for the last few weeks converting his older motorhome, GMC, from carburation to fuel injection, and the trials and tribulations. You might want to know if you're interested in taking your classic, maybe a muscle car, or maybe you've got a collectible out there that you want to make an everyday driver, but that dadgum carburetor is just a pain in the butt. Anyway, let me get Frank on here, and we can talk a little bit more about it. Good morning, Frank. How are we doing today, sir?
Good morning, and I'm pleased to report that I'm in Richmond, Kentucky, but I'm not on the side of the road.
Well, that's encouraging because I was a little concerned, traveling all the way from Brunel, Florida, up to Kentucky without, on a test run was a pretty long drive for a test run to see if the fuel injection system worked on this. And how did it do?
James, everybody should do the conversion, as much of a hassle as it is.
Yeah.
It is nothing short of amazing.
Oh, really? So tell me what's so amazing about it, besides it starting when you turn the key.
Well, it starts when you turn the key. I was having a major problem with vapor locking, as you might recall, especially when I was at a traffic light, and I would start to, when the light turned green, I started to move. When it got to mid-intersection is when it would start to stumble and stutter, and I darn near got into several accidents with it, and it was just downright dangerous driving the thing. And now,
good. So that's over. So you have no vapor lock, so there's no hesitation when you get halfway through an intersection and the thing acts like it's starving for gas. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And I let it idle in traffic. I didn't let it. I was stuck in traffic several times over the weekend, and I drove it up and down A1A, the highway. And it just, even in bumper-to-bumper traffic for 45 minutes, it just did really well. Not a soon, nothing. I don't know if the fuel cooler I put on there, the little radiator in front of the real radiator, whether it helped or not, but I didn't have any problem with vapor locking anymore.
Well, you're not going to, because you have positive pressure. You got a fuel pump that pushes fuel instead of sucking fuel. When you have a mechanical fuel pump, it creates a vacuum to suck the fuel out of the tank with an electric. That's right. And when you have a fuel pump, you're pushing cold fuel from the gas tank forward. So that's the difference. And you have a return line on this, do you not?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so so you have it operates 9 to 13 psi. I'm guessing. I'm not sure what it operates on, but it produces more fuel pressure than it needs, and what's not used is sent back to the tank, and it starts the process over again. Putting a cooler on there is not a bad idea, but especially since you've had such a problem with vapor locking over the years, I don't blame you for doing that. My question is, how was the improvement of any fuel mileage on the highway? That's what I was curious about. You were getting a whopping, 6 miles to a gallon before?
6 to 8 miles to a gallon. Truthfully, I don't know.
Okay.
It seemed to be a little bit better, but 40-year-old gas gauges are nothing to go by.
Heck, 4-year-old gas gauges are nothing to go by. Forget 40 years. I've seen some gas gauges on cars that are 2 and 3 years old that I do not trust, especially on Priuses. I do not trust Prius fuel tank gauges. They're NQR, not quite right. But okay, so you got better fuel mileage. You think you're not quite sure, but it starts up better, runs better. When it's cold, it does a better job of starting. What are the other things that you've noticed by putting this system on here?
Well, no dieseling. That's the other thing. When I shut it off, because there's so much heat trapped underneath the motorhome, because the engine is actually underneath the cockpit. There was just a lot of heat there. So, and all of a sudden, it just when we turn the key off, the fuel pump stops and it stops instantly.
Yes. And that's what you want. So you have no dieseling anymore. You have okay. So there's no dieseling, no vapor lock. Write down these notes down here. Easier starting, and let's see what else we got. Easier starting. Does it idle better? Run smoother.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the other things you've seen?
This is a self-learning system.
Yeah.
So I let it sit for a week. I just got in there, hit the key, and then you hear a little burp as the fuel pump squirts a little bit of gas down the down into the throttle body, and then you hit the starter, and it just boom, it just fires right up.
It is amazing when something like that happens. And I was talking to someone, one of my service writer the other day, and I said, we were talking about older model cars, and I said they didn't come with fuel injection. He said, well, they did. 1961 Corvette had it. And I said, yeah, they may have had fuel injection as an option starting in '57, but they were mechanical fuel injection. They were tied to the camshaft, and it was timed to the engine. So as the piston would come up, it would fire mechanically, not electronically. Where yours, every time there's a spark, it fires an injector, if I'm not mistaken. No matter what cylinder's firing, you got two injectors on the top. Every time an engine, it's 1, 8, 4, 3, 6, 5, 7, 2 is the firing order on a V8 engine. But every time cylinder 1 fires, an injector comes up top dead center, that fires. Cylinder 2, it just keeps firing, boom, 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 fast as possible, and it actually produces a little bit more fuel than it needs, so you don't have the superior fuel mileage that you would have in sequential fuel injection, where each cylinder gets exactly what it needs. Instead, you're getting a kind of a generalized need but it's still much, much more efficient than it ever was. This is the earliest form of fuel injection that came out in the early 80s on American cars. We may have had it, but it wasn't around. We didn't have sequential or we had multi-port and mainly throttle body. That was the two we had. And then sequential came out a few years later, but still, throttle body is a marvelous improvement on that car. If you're getting that better, starting better, no dieseling, it runs smoother, there's no vapor lock. And you say your gas mileage you think's improved, but we don't know how much it's improved yet, because that has what, an 80-gallon gas tank in it, or a 100-gallon gas tank?
A 50 a gallon, and at almost $3 a gallon in places, it's a little bit sobering.
Yeah, sobering's not a word for it. I think I need to get drunk before I go fill my gas tank up. Because
Panama City, I guess I bought gas. What was it? Sunday afternoon, I was there. And I bought gas for $2.66 at Sam's.
Mm-hmm.
The place over on 231 and Highway 20 was almost $3 a gallon.
Well,
and yesterday in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I bought gas for $2.38 a gallon.
Well, a lot of it has to do with our state tax that we have on fuel, and a lot of it has to do with where you're driving. If you're on a tourist corridor coming into Bay County, like on Highway 20 and 231, welcome to Bay County. You're going to pay 15 to 20% more for gas. If you go right across the line into Calhoun County or into other counties, you're paying 30 cents a gallon cheaper because of the taxing situation. Plus, they're not catering to tourists, trying to gouge them on their way in and out. Well, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say gouge. It's just supply and demand. If they overcharge, people wouldn't come there, but people come there. It's pretty amazing. People will pay $3, $4 a gallon, no problem whatsoever. But I think when gas gets to about $5 a gallon, I think you might see a little kickback. And you were talking about that a few weeks ago on how people were going from cars to SUVs and pickup trucks. I'm not going to say they're going to go to campers like yours, but they're going to much bigger cars that aren't exactly as fuel efficient as the smaller cars. And I think that's because gasoline, as you said, is less than $3 or $4 a gallon. But once it reaches, what did we decide it was going to be? $5 a gallon? People start pushing back and say, no, I'm not going to, or $5. What did we decide on that? I know we talked about it.
I think the magic number is around $4 a gallon is when you start to see really altered behavior, when people start trading their SUVs in for Honda Fits.
Well, we went through that. We went through it in the early 70s. We went through it again in the mid-90s. And I think we're fixing to go through it again because everything is cyclical. Everything seems to repeat. The stock market boom and bust, gas lines, prices boom and bust. I got a feeling we're going to see gas prices get higher. We're going to see the stock market do some corrective action. And all this usually takes place in every 10 years. We see this, and it's coming up on it. And when it happens, people were so surprised and going, I can't believe it's happening. Going, man, history repeats itself. It's just like the sun coming up in the east and setting in the west. It's always going to do these things. you just don't know when they're going to do it. It's just a matter of when, not a matter of if. That seems to be the thing that happens out there. And I think things are changing, and I think things are changing for the better. I mean, a lot of people seem to be upset about the future of America, but I really think we have some good days ahead of us, Frank. I think this is a great country to live in. It, may not be the best in some people's eyes, but to me, I can't think of a better country to live in. I mean, you've lived in other countries, have you not?
I have. I grew up 14,000 miles away, and so there are people who argue with me whether I actually ever grew up.
So I know the feeling. Once you get past 60, if you haven't grown up, you don't have to. I'm going to let you know that, okay? Well, it's all right.
The Koreans have this wonderful saying is that when you kill the boy in a man, you kill the man.
Oh, well, I guess you take away that dream, that spark.
Yes.
I think that's what it is. I know one thing. You went into the education field, did you not? A few years ago, we got a couple minutes left. And you taught people about broadcasting, and you taught people about marketing and perception versus reality and reporting. And what do you see in the last 20 years that's changed in that area? I know we got a couple minutes, but I don't know if that's too much of a question to ask.
The whole attitude towards education has changed, and more you're seeing the corporatization of education all over the place. Mm-hmm. James, there is a guy you need to get on your radio. His guy named Clifford Stoll.
Clifford Stoll?
And Clifford Stoll, and he wrote a book called Silicon Snake Oil. And in it, he argues against having technology in classrooms, saying that it is a poor substitute for actual teaching. And all it does is it diverts the money away, but it does not produce results. And he goes all the way back to blackboards, whiteboards, slide presentations, movies, all these things. And today it's all multimedia. And he argues, this book is about 20 years old now, but he argues that good teaching involves a teacher and a student, and teaching is hard work. It is not fun.
Tell me about it.
It is not fun.
Tell me about it. Try teaching employees that have problems with getting cars fixed, and sometimes it seems like 100 first dates. Haven't I told you this the last 200 times, it seems like? Yeah. This is how you do it. Sometimes it doesn't click, but I think you're right, because I understand things a little bit more better than my employees do when it comes to the basics, such as electronic ignition or conventional ignition, the transfer. I think if children or adults, young mechanics, whatever, were taught how conventional ignition worked with points and condenser, and then the transition from there, that technology, which is very basic, to electronic, I think that was a big leap. And what happens right now, they don't even talk about that. They don't even talk about how that rudimentary system works and then how they developed with technology. They just come in, you have a car, you turn this, and by the power of electrons, you have spark. I'm going, yeah, it's a little bit more involved than that. And that's why I think what you're talking about, technology, has taken the place of learning. Because we were taught back when we had electronic ignition back when I was in high school, but our teacher insisted that we learn how the system basically worked. Ever since the beginning of internal combustion engines to where we were then with electronic ignition, which started in '72 on Chrysler, and to where we are today with no distributors and using crank sensors and cam sensors, and it's just an amazing thing out there. But the technology, it can be a two-edged sword. It can be good, but then it can cripple you because you don't know how to think outside the box. That's what happens. One thing I've seen. All right, we got to go, Frank.
Very important.
We got to go. We got someone calling right now. All right, you be good, Frank, and I'll be talking to you again I got next Monday morning at 6 a.m., okay?
I'll be there.
All right, kiddo. You be good.
Thank you, sir.
Right, bye-bye now.
Bye.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call a hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
The thing that I like about Alex is that it's written so that everybody can understand it, and it's filled with footnotes.
Good.
And what he does is he traces education back to, I would say back to the 60s, but he'll go back further. And he shows step by step the concerted effort of the communists under their many, many names, and how they have infiltrated what they intend to do, and how they are actually saying out loud that what they're doing is in opposition to the American Constitution, and they don't care. This is the people are too stupid to grasp anything, and they have to make all of the rules. And last week, remember the straw ban? I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But one of the councilmen who was in favor of the banning of plastic straws said that this is not really about plastic straws. This is about controlling every aspect of human behavior.
Well, duh.
Yeah.
What do you know?
So now, what we were talking about yesterday is the actual right out in your face doing it and saying, I dare you to criticize me because I will put you in, thought jail, and we'll have to re-educate you. But all of the things that have been said over the years are now coming true. And this is a very, very scary situation, because in the beginning, when Common Core was introduced, one of the things that was introduced with it was the data management.
Data management.
And
okay.
Every keystroke that your child makes in school, in the government schools, is recorded and reported and kept, and will be following that child through their lifetime. And this is already being done in China.
Well, what was that? Here, speaking of that, China, we've all heard about the 100-year plan that the Federal Reserve has. We've all heard about that over the years. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but, we've all heard about they think 100 years in advance. Well, does China have a similar policy that their plan is to take over America in 100 years that they've been working on?
Yesterday, there was an article that the Chinese have given out what they call a card, and it has social credit. So your behavior in China is being monitored, and if you do not stand up to what they believe you should be thinking, then your movement within China is curtailed.
And your credit is curtailed as well, I found out.
Exactly.
Your credit score is changed because China is turning into, quote, I know it sounds like an oxymoron, a communist capitalist state, where they control everything, but you get a little freedom and you're able to you get ahead in life, but at the same time, it's authoritarian. And they will, it's a little one-sided, so to speak. They have a heavy hand, so to speak. If you don't agree with what they say, you can't complain about it. You just go to jail or you end up disappearing.
That's right. And the government owns all of the businesses. So look what they have done to the American businesses. And what we were talking about is the sellout of our former presidents, both Clinton and both Bushes, sold our technology to China.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have our legislators like Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein's driver was a communist Chinese spy. He was her driver for 20 years. Mitch McConnell's wife is Chinese, and Mitch McConnell has amassed billions of dollars under his father-in-law's business, which is transportation management in China.
I knew he had married an Asian lady. I didn't know anything about it being. I did not know about that part. We'll have to check that out.
Well, this is why when China comes up in our legislature, and I'm talking about our federal legislature, the Senate hardly rules on anything, and Mitch McConnell is the reason why. So each one of the, also, they have infiltrated our schools. I'm talking about the Chinese. We have Chinese charter schools in Florida.
That's being taken off.
The one thing that I did see was that the Chinese school in the college in Jacksonville, the Mandarin school, they are shutting that down. It was very, very intrusive, and of course talks about the wonders of communism. They call it globalism.
Oh, yeah, globalism, yes.
The infiltration of the Chinese in our education. But I knew about the education. The thing that I did not know about was that the lobbying, he said, is insurmountable in D.C.
I wouldn't doubt. Now, I pulled this up. A lot of people, we've talked about the Communist Manifesto. But you know, I ask people this all the time, and they say, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of the Communist Manifesto. So there's 10 planks in the Communist Manifesto, and just about all 10 of them, America has we've embraced. 1, abolition of private property and land and application of all rents of land and public purposes. That's one right there.
Now, what we did, we also talked about the Rockefellers, because that was their mantra. The Rockefellers in the 30s, the Rockefeller Foundation, they went after and managed for globalism the national side. So they were involved in American programs, while the Carnegie Foundation was involved in international programs, both with the same goal. So after the Cold War, they had a real problem because there was no enemy. There's nobody to fight.
You got to have an enemy.
What they did is they came together and they used what the Rockefellers wrote a long time ago called the Unfinished Agenda, and you can Google that. And they used that as the template to create Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030.
And yes.
And they decided, and you can look this up too, they decided that the good enemy would be the environment, because the enemy of the earth is man, and therefore they can cite man as being the enemy.
It's amazing how they sit there and talk about, how they're trying to sound so altruistic. The enemy of the earth is man, and we need to take care of the earth, and we're being good stewards and all that. And pretty much what I figured out is it's a way for someone to take money out of my pocket and put it in their pocket.
Exactly. This whole
remember the
global warming.
You remember the ozone layer?
All of these not new, but all of these pushes into sustainable energy are all for the same reason. Think about this. Coal supplies 30% of the energy in America.
And it all started...
And they want to replace it with something that's less than 3%? What happens when it's cold or hot?
I know.
What happens? And then we sit and we remember China. There's no air conditioning in China.
Wait, let me ask you. China is one of the few countries that can still produce Freon 12, R12, because India, China, they produce R12 and they use it. We can't buy it here. Well, you can't use it in America. It's been outlawed unless you want to pay over $100 a pound for it, and that's all taxes. But it has a lot to do with power. It has a lot of what to do is with who's... Well, I'll give you an idea. R12 was developed by DuPont. The patent ran out on R12. So guess what? It's a bad gas. It's causing the hole in the ozone layer. Well, guess what? That hole in the ozone layer, they don't talk about anymore because, it really wasn't there to begin with. But they say it's because back in 1994, we stopped using R12 in America. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think Americans stopped using R12 or started slowing down using R12? They still use it. That stopped the ozone layer? I don't think so. I just think it's a natural progression of the Earth going through the galaxy, things happening. And I think the Earth could shake off man like a bad case of fleas on a dog. I
agree with you. Thank God the American people agree with us. And that's a biggie, because the pulling out of the climate, which was nothing other, the Paris Accord, which was nothing other than a way of taking policy, foreign policy, out of American courts and putting it in the hands of the United Nations World Court.
Yes.
And that was the whole concept of the Paris Climate Accord.
It has nothing to do.
Changing
Yes.
the court system to make America subservient to foreign law.
I can't disagree, because that's one of the things we've been seeing happening. But before we get off the air, I got about a minute left here or so. The 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. I talked about abolition of private property and land, heavy progressive or graduated income tax. That came out in 1913. That one right there really burns me. It really does, because that actually discourages growth and productivity. Believe it or not. Abolition of all rights of inheritance. Inheritance tax? Anyone ever heard about inheritance tax out there?
Probably not, and everybody can go online and Google the 45 goals of communism read into the congressional record. And you will see that almost 44 goals have been achieved.
Well, another thing we talk about, this anti-immigration right here. Confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels. That's it. Okay, well, centralization of the credit in the hands of the state.
They have trouble in America because Americans have guns. That's the whole deal.
Yeah, right, and we got centralization of the credit in the hands of the state. That means we got a central bank. That's another thing that they want. Centralization of means of communication and transportation at the hands of the state. We have 6 people that own all the communications, of radio and television in America. 6 people, I understand.
Exactly.
And so it's getting down where centralization right there of that. Extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state, bringing the cultivation of wastelands. Can you say property in Florida that needs to be bought by the government? And improvement.
And they're going to do that under the idea of it's for conservation. No, it isn't. It's because they want the land.
And then it all has to do with collective farms that we remember so much in the 50s and 60s, and all the starvation that took place. Equal obligation to all work. That number 9, combination of agriculture with manufacturing industries. Gradual abolition, I can't even say abolition of distinction. Between town and country by more equal destruction of population over the country. We call it planning reorganization. It sounds like, Agenda 2021. Free education for all children in government school.
That's right. Got to get them in the government schools so they can be indoctrinated with the government program.
And those are the 10 planks. And guess what? America is grasping with open arms and wanting these 10 planks as part of their life. And I'll be honest with you, I used to think public schools were a good thing till I start seeing what's coming out. When I have people come and apply for a job after graduating from high school with honors and they can't hardly write, come on now. Get out of here.
Well, again, we have to pay attention. In Florida, we were given a great bill. The bill is 989. It gives any Florida citizen the right to challenge what's in the textbook. If you are interested in helping us, we have put together a website, and it's on Florida Citizens Alliance. Just go look at put in the search engine objectionable material and be prepared, because what you will see is horrifying.
Karen, I got to go. Thank you for that information. We'll be talking to you again next Wednesday. Bye-bye, everybody.